Hello, this is Brian Gomer. Welcome back to another Spectrum ownership landscape update. In this particular update, we're going to go through some examples of how to use this planning tool to evaluate wireless spectrum and the carrier's ownership. Before we get started, I just want to take you through some of the legal particulars. So I've got up on the screen the intellectual property statement. All of this report, its formats, technical concepts, methods, processes, and procedures discussed in the following presentation and contained in the Spectrum Ownership Landscape Report are subject to a provisional patent that will be vigorously defended. With that, let's go ahead and jump in to the Spectrum Landscape Report. The first example of how to use the Spectrum Landscape Report is I'm going to go ahead and evaluate the markets that AT&T has purchased from Verizon. So it's the A block. We're going to take a look at the B block 700 meg spectrum. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll over here. We're going through the PCS spectrum now. And here comes the 700 meg. So the 700 meg spectrum, you can see down here lower on the screen, you can see a set of Verizon B block spectrum. So although Verizon didn't sell all of it to AT&T, a large majority of it is. But if you wanted to know what B block spectrum Verizon held, we can actually just do a pull down here and actually select Verizon and let the auto filtering take place. And then what we're able to see is that Verizon's spectrum holding is in Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, Cincinnati, all the way down. What this also allows us to take a look at is the fact that with Verizon holding this spectrum right now, how was AT&T able to launch LTE? And it'll give you a little bit more of a picture as you look over here to the AWS section to see that these are all markets that AT&T has a much more significant AWS spectrum ownership than they do in most of the other markets. One thing that this also highlights is the ownership of some of the alternate bands, and that as we look at this AWS spectrum ownership in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, you see that one of the top national carriers is not an owner of the spectrum, that this is actually CB, which is Cincinnati Bell, and that Aloha, with the initials HI, is a spectrum holder for that middle band channel. So we'll go ahead and take that auto filter off. Some of the other questions that you may be interested in knowing is potentially in markets. What are the markets that Dish and AT&T both are not holders of the E block spectrum? So we'll go here to the E block spectrum and turn off the ability to see AT&T and Dish. And you'll see that out of the entire United States, there are very, very limited counties that have that E block spectrum. So these are all still coded as some other carrier besides the carriers on our list are the owners of these. You can see that the vast majority of them are in odd, less than typical carrier focused locations, meaning the Gulf of Mexico and Guam, American Samoa, and the Marinara Islands. But you do see that there are two markets in the U.S. that spectrum is actually controlled by another party. So what we can do now is go over to our data for we'll see if there's several ways we can take a look at this. What we're looking at is the 700 meg E block spectrum. So we're going to turn our counties on, get everything back. We're going to go to New York. I'm pretty sure I still remember my alphabet. We can go to the 700 meg A, B, and E. Here we can select E. And then over here where the carrier code is, oh, interesting. This is going to be a bad example because for some reason everything, oh, it was New Jersey. So let's open this up to the entire country. We're going to select all counties, all states. And now we do have the other code. And we're able to see that the spectrum holder in Philadelphia County and in Bergen County, New Jersey is actually a company called Fan Vision Entertainment. Alright, so let's go ahead and go back and let's take a look at some other examples. So with a lot of interest being in the WCS band, I would think you could ask the question of so what are the locations or the markets that AT&T does not have either the guard bands or the actual spectrum that they plan to use for LTE available. So as we look at this band, and I'm going to go ahead and scroll just a little bit further across. As we look at this band, HO is Horizon Wi-Fi, Comcast, NextWave. So basically the orange, blue, and yellow all are representative of AT&T's acquisitions. But as you know, one way we can look at this is to go ahead and scroll down, and we can see that in Boston, AT&T is actually missing what they'll need to have as a guard band. That's in the hand of another carrier. You could actually look that carrier up in much the same way that we just looked up the 700 meg E-block spectrum. As we continue to scroll down, we can see that in St. Louis, a different carrier, Strata, I think is the S carrier, controls that spectrum. And then we already went over the Dallas-Fort Worth market. But that Sprint, AT&T has the guard band spectrum, but Sprint holds the basically the LTE spectrum in those cases. So again, just by doing a visual analysis, we can kind of see what's going on. The other way that we could attack this is, you know, again, to use the auto filters and to select where it's not Horizon or Comcast or AT&T or NextWave, and then to see what spectrum that lines in on. So we again still have the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we have Columbus, Ohio, Strata again is here in Baton Rouge, but for the most part, and then another strong contingent for Sprint coming in some of these lower CMA markets. Okay, kind of that other visual example of looking through the data is to better understand who the other players are in the EBS spectrum space. So I'll bring the EBS spectrum here to the middle. So with the EBS spectrum up, you can easily spot that NextWave has a spectrum position for the C4 channel in a lot of these New York markets. It also has in Los Angeles, in Orange County, 4 channels of spectrum that it controls. Again, kind of talking through the rules that O means one of our predominant carriers doesn't own or control that spectrum, and most likely as it relates to the EBS BRS spectrum, that would indicate that it's probably an educational licensee that still holds the spectrum, because we identified most of the carriers that are using EBS spectrum. What you do notice, I'll highlight it down here, and it's in the Chicago market, that Xanadu actually controls 5 channels of spectrum. They control this piece of spectrum and then 4 channels here, the H, G1, G2, G3. If there are blanks, that would indicate that the spectrum has never actually been licensed, that there isn't a license holder for that spectrum in that particular county. When that's not surprising when you look at the EBS spectrum, because that spectrum may not have ever been licensed and it could never be auctioned because it's educational spectrum. As we continue to kind of look down, you do get some surprising things that pop up. SN, although it would seem that might be Sprint Nextel, that's actually SpeedNet. So SpeedNet is another significant player in the 2.5 EBS BRS spectrum. So you can get a good sense of what's going on, that even Dish is a player with at least one call sign license out there for the G channels here. So again, you can get a lot of really good insights into the ownership of the EBS BRS spectrum. I think with that, that's a good group of examples. I'm going to go ahead and of using the spectrum landscape. The next video that I upload will allow you to kind of look at the carrier summaries and how to use those and generate tabular data to again get one of those other perspectives on understanding spectrum. Thank you very much.